everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we'll be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars. But before we do, we just want to make sure to remind you to hit that subscribe button so you can see our videos as they come out. Now, Star Wars The Clone Wars is designed by Alexander Ortloff. It is based on Matt Leacock's system, but it is designed by Alexander and is published by Z-Man Games.
Alright, if you are a Star Wars nerd like me, then you have definitely heard of the Clone Wars. In the Star Wars movies, this will take place during movie 2 and movie 3. There's also a show called The Clone Wars and several other shows that take place during this time period.
Omega!
Yeah, like for instance, The Bad Batch that's shortly after this. But
oh gosh, my kids talk about Omega all the time.
It's shortly. It's related. Great job.
But I thought the Bad Batch was in the game.
There is a Bad Batch card in this game, but they're only in the Clone Wars for like a second before the Clone Wars ends.
So you know who the fan is and who the fan isn't. Sorry, I interrupted. You can carry on.
I know something about that topic. Yeah, so basically, this is a pandemic-style game taking place in that specific time period, the Clone Wars of the greater Star Wars universe. Alright, so we're trying to get rid of all the droids. We are the Jedi. We are the good guys. As a full cooperative game. Let me give you a quick overview of how it plays. Alright, here's our setup for Star Wars The Clone Wars. So we are playing as the role of the Republic Army, led by the Jedi. So we're playing as the Jedi characters. We're going to be helped out by the Clone Warriors as well. What we're doing is we're fighting the Separatist army. Over here have the droids, as well as the blockade ships. Similar to other pandemic games, we have our invasion marker over here, which is going to tell us how many of those invasion cards we're going to draw each turn. Also over here we have our threats tracker over here. That's going to determine how we end the game. We're either going to win the game by completing all of our missions and defeating our enemy, or we're going to lose the game by our threats going all the way to the bottom. There are a whole bunch of the Clone Wars era Jedi that you can use. We've got Ahsoka, we've got Luminari, we've got Obi-Wan, but today we're going to be playing as Anakin Skywalker, of course, before he turned into Darth Vader. There are also 4 villains in the box. They suggest to start with fighting Asajj Ventress, like we have over here set up, but also we've got Darth Maul, we've got Count Dooku, and we've got General Grievous. Each one of them has kind of their own theme and their own kind of way that they're going to try to defeat you. They all have their own villain decks. So for instance, right here we have General Grievous's deck, basically 6 cards. Every turn what we're going to do is we're going to flip over the top card of that deck, and we're going to read it, and we're going to basically have some kind of bad thing happen to us. Well, that all sounds pretty terrible. How are we going to fight back? Well, first of all, each one of the Jedi has their own special ability. So for instance, Anakin Skywalker's ability says, this is a free action, you can attack. And on top of that, you can use any of your cards as if they were red clones during this attack. So what does that mean? Well, basically, we have 2 kinds of clones in our hand. We have either purple ones or red ones. Here we've got our good buddy Rex, and we have 5s. Normally, the reds stick together with the reds, purples stick together with the purples. His special ability allows you to play any of the cards together as if they were red. What that means is basically more successes. So in your turn, one of the things you can do is you can move, obviously. So we're over here on Umbara. Let's move over to where there's some droids. Alright, that's 2 of our actions. Our next action we can do is we can attack. What we're going to do when we attack is we are going to declare as many cards as we want. In this case, because we are Anakin, we're going to use our special ability, and we're going to declare these 2 cards as in the battle. We're also going to roll this die. This die is going to tell us how many more successes we have. So in this case, we have 3 successes. Guess what? There's 3 droids. They each have 1 hit point each, so we can defeat all 3 of them. Each one of the cards counts as 1 success. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of those. We're going to keep them off to the side, kind of keeping them turned sideways to show they've been used for this round. Also, if we would roll one of these little, kind of explosions here, that counts as damage. Damage requires us to get rid of one of the cards in our hand. However, if we have one of these vehicles say they prevent 1 damage from a Jedi on your planet. So instead what you can do is if you have one of those, you can instead tap that or turn it sideways, again, to show that it's been used that round. Alright, so we defeated those guys. Let's get those guys out of here. Alright, so we've moved, we've attacked, and then also on our turn what we can do is we can draw more cards into our hand. We do have a hand limit of 7 cards though. We also have vehicles that can help us out. These vehicles allow us to move a little bit faster. Once again, if you use them, you turn them sideways. And then we've got allies. Each one of the allies has a different ability. All of our favorite Star Wars characters are going to show up in these allies. We've got Honda Anaka over here, that allows you to move Jedi. We've got the Bad Batch showing up, of course, because it's the Clone Wars era. This just says you can deal damage to the planet that you're on, which is fantastic. We've talked about moving, we've talked about drawing cards, and we've talked about attacking. The 4th action that you can do is you can attempt a mission. We have our missions over here, and this is how you progress the game. Each one of the missions is on a different planet, so we've got an orange mission over here, we've got the white mission over there, based off of where the cards are, and they're going to do certain things. For instance, this one says Hunt for Zero. What we're going to do is we're going to get rid of one of the cards in our hand. We have a mission over here, we've got the orange mission over there, based off of where the cards are, and they're going to do certain things. For instance, this one says Hunt for Zero. This is going to require us to have 6 of our vehicles in our hand, in addition to rolling the die. So what's going to happen is you're going to roll a die, try to get as many of those successes as possible. If you get 6, including the vehicles that you used, you're going to be able to complete this mission. You're going to get additional success based off each Jedi that you have on Nalhutta, which is where this takes place. Also, we're going to have damage built into this, so we're going to have to lose at least 1 card in order to complete this mission. Once you complete a mission, you simply reveal the next one from the deck. That is also kind of the difficulty marker. The more cards you have in your mission deck, the more challenging the game is, the longer it's going to last. At the end of your turn, the villain's going to take their turn. You're going to flip over the top card of their deck over there and do whatever it says. In this case, let's flip over the top card of that deck. And it says, Ventress on board. Unfortunately, she is on the board. We have not defeated her yet. It says, roll the die. Move Ventress 1 planet per success towards the closest mission planet. It's basically going to make you closer and closer to those missions, making them harder and harder to complete. A lot of those cards will also move up that threat tracker. Another way that those threat decks can increase is based off of that invasion deck. So similar to pandemic games, what's going to happen is you're going to be drawing cards, dropping more droids all over these planets, and eventually one of her cards is going to come up that says, take all of those cards, shuffle them, and put it on top of the deck, draw some more cards. So now we're dropping more droids on the planets that we just had droids on them. Eventually, if a planet ever needs to be placed a 4th droid on a planet, instead of placing that droid, you block one of those trade blockades. That can also increase the threat. You cannot complete any missions or do anything on that planet until you've defeated the trade blockade ship. Once we complete our missions, we're going to flip over the villain sheet. Basically, it's going to give us some additional actions that we need to do in order to win the game. In this case, we need to have basically a large mission with a dogfight. It says we need to have a whole bunch of ships and some of those red clones in order to fight her. And that's how you win the game. You complete all of your missions as well as the reverse side of your villain. Once you've done that, you've won the game. However, if your threats get all the way to the bottom, you lose the game altogether. Again, this is a full cooperative game.
I really liked how hand management worked in this. Like in the other pandemic games, you're kind of wanting a certain thing or you're wanting a certain area, but that's not what this was. I mean, you're still wanting certain things, but not in the same way in regular pandemic, and you don't get punished. Like your hand isn't punished like it is, and it's also not a timer. You can actually, if you go through everything, reshuffle and get stuff again. So that stressor was gone, while also just having it like the card is active or it's not active. You used it or you didn't use it, but you still have that hand limit. I just thought that the hand management aspect of this game was really unique.
There are 4 different villains in this game, and you only play with one of them at a time, or in the case of one of them, he uses multiple other ones. But the point is, there's 4 different scenarios, essentially, that you can play, and they're all very, very different. They all use different mechanisms and ways to work you down. Alright, so for instance, you have one might just drop a whole bunch of droids on the board, just filling the board with droids. One might attack your guys' hands and minimize what cards you're able to use, that kinds of things. Maybe one's going to make your missions harder. Whatever the case is, you have all of these different variabilities that you're going to have to overcome each turn. They have all have their own individual deck, and how they attack you and what they do to you changes. At the same time, you all have different Jedi. The Jedi all do different things each turn too, so all their special abilities are varied. And then, of course, you have the order of the way that things come out. More variety. And now, for the first time, you have a dice as well, or a die. So you have this this combat die that you're going to roll, and it's going to tell you, give you additional successes, and as well, give you some damage that you might be taking. So, every time you play this, you're going to have a completely different experience based on all these variety of factors. There's limitless play in this box.
Limitless. Ryan said limitless. You can take him to the bank on that.
I did the math for you guys. It's fine.
So I am not, as we have discovered in the intro, like a huge Star Wars person. I don't have any issues with it. Like I'm not like anti-Star Wars. I'm just not going to follow it. I have tried reading one of the books and I just couldn't get through it, and I love reading. I just like, maybe put in the comments below if there's just a series or a Star Wars book that I definitely should read, and this is going to completely change my whole perspective on Star Wars. I am interested. Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, I think that one of the things that's nice about this is I was still able to enjoy the game. So I didn't know what character was from this planet the whole time we were playing. Ryan's like, do you know who's from this planet? Do you know who was born on this planet? I'm like, no, I don't
care.
But you don't have to know that to be able to enjoy the game. You can still get behind the mechanics of the game and still try to play that way. You don't have to actually get into the theme of it to be able to enjoy it.
All right, so Bethany just spoke to people who are not fans of Star Wars, right?
Correct.
So I'm going to talk to fans of Pandemic specifically. It uses the pandemic style system. Lots and lots of things in this game feel familiar to people who like Pandemic, but at the same time, it doesn't hardly have any of the true one-to-one parallels from other Pandemic style games. And, you know, not only in theme, but also in the way they're executed. So, for instance, you have in Pandemic-style games, you have those epidemics that come up, these big bad cards that'll show up. That's in the usually in the main player deck. It's going to come up and it's going to cause you to reshuffle cards. It's going to cause you to draw more cards. It's going to put more cubes on the board, whatever the case is. The similar card exists, but it comes in the villain deck instead of in the player deck. So this villain deck will have a card that comes up and it says basically do all that same stuff, raise the threat level, do all that bad stuff. And then you also have all these missions. These missions kind of are like curing the diseases in a way, where you have to have a whole bunch of cards and get ready to lose them all potentially once you complete this mission. And you're also going to take some damage. That's why when you get rid of the cards. So it feels like that, but without actually feeling like that. If you didn't know this was a Pandemic game, you wouldn't call it a Pandemic game. Yeah. But at the same time, once you know that it is related to Pandemic in some way, you'd be like, oh, that all feels familiar. I can see that DNA kind of woven all the way through it, which makes it really, really interesting. So for my Pandemic fans out there, if you were interested in this game, it is probably the most diverse, the most interesting, the most non-Pandemic of the Pandemic games, while still feeling completely like Pandemic, if that makes any sense at all.
So overall, I did enjoy this game, and I did like it. It's definitely not my favorite of the Pandemic games, and it's probably not a game that I would gravitate towards. However, because I was able to enjoy it, I feel like if you are a gamer out there and your partner is maybe a huge Star Wars nerd like my lovely partner is, this would be a perfect game to like bridge that gap. This would be the perfect game to scratch their itch and scratch your itch at the same time of gaming Star Wars. So I feel like there's like a worlds collide that is here present in the game.
All right, so maybe it wasn't one of your favorites. I've got to say, this is probably, if I were to redo my Pandemic rankings, we did that once before in one of our videos. Be sure to check it out. It's pretty good. If I were to redo that...
It's not accurate anymore.
But it's true. If I were to redo that ranking, I would, on my side of things, I would put this pretty high. It did things in a fresher, more unique way than basically any other Pandemic. A lot of those other Pandemics all feel similar with cool little twists in them. This turns the whole system on its head while still keeping it intact. So, with a great theme.
You're just like, I just this.
Star Wars is great. Sorry.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us in all of these places. Also, our 9-year-old is a big fan of this game. Yes.
There's a good chance she's going to be reviewing this soon. So be sure to watch out for that too, so you can kind of see what it's like from a 9-year-old's perspective.
Yeah, it will actually be great, but on like just so many levels.
Yeah, like very chaotic.
So be on the lookout for that. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.